your brain is also going to seek a soothing mechanism to fulfill the same measure which you are being wounded, right? And this is where pornography perfectly fits almost into the form and function of what healthy attachment is supposed to do, because in pornography, in the consumption of pornography, you're getting your sugar bread, you're getting that dopamine dump, that reward system hijacking at an extreme level, but what you're also getting is the false form of intimacy. You're getting that false form of connection. Your brain is viewing a relational act of supposed intimacy that fills those voids of, I long to be seen, saved, healthy touch, soothed, secure in relationships. And so pornography fulfills the relational wound almost as much as it fulfills just the desire for dopamigenic relief in the nervous system.
Welcome to the 423 podcast with 423 Communities, where we explore the intersection of faith, recovery, and restoration, equipping you to move from shame and addiction towards life in Christ.
Hey, Joel.
Hey, Ben.
How are you doing today?
Why would you ask me that question?
Because I care about you. I value this relationship.
Yeah, well, thank you for your care, friend. How I am doing. We're doing really well. I think at the space of this podcast, my wife and I are expecting baby number 4.
You're gonna drop it like that? Do people know?
I don't know.
Dude,
Do you know?
I know. You've told
Did
me.
you know? Okay.
Congrats again. I already said it. Don't worry, guys. But yeah, you're just dropping public information like that. That's exciting.
Yeah, no, we're really excited. And ministry feels like it's just moving quicker than ever, which is awesome that we get to step in that space and help people grow and heal, and getting churches equipped. That's always such an honor to me to sit with a pastor and talk about how we can help his congregation. To me, that's such a beautiful mechanism that the church employs to help people in that space. So yeah, man, ministry is growing, and we're helping people, and we're walking with people. And I think in that sense, things are going really well, man.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
How are you been?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Macy just started school again. She's in PA school. That's my wife, by the way, for context.
Yeah.
And so she's on full throttle mode and trying to do everything and trying to keep things together at the house. So we're both spread a little thin, but overall, doing good. We both are doing hard things, but feel like it's a privilege to get to do it.
Yeah.
Try to remember that. Said that to myself and to her this morning. We chose this life. This is stuff that we get to do, not stuff that we have to do.
Yeah.
So
that's good, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive back into this topic with you. We're in season 2, which is crazy.
It is crazy.
I think that puts us in the top 3% of podcasts.
Yeah.
And most
quality too.
With great quality. I hope that you agree if you're listening, or watching.
Yeah.
And if you're listening and you don't know that you can watch this,
It's on YouTube.
We are in a room
Communities.
together.
Yes.
We changed the lighting a bit.
Yeah, we're a little moodier. New cameras.
Yeah,
Different
cameras,
lighting.
different lighting in a room that the AC turned off.
Yeah.
So it's going to get warmer every second that we're in here. So if you see us sweating, it's not the content.
You hear something dripping on the mic. It's our condensation. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, man, I just want to ask how you're doing, because I care about our relationship.
Yes.
I care about how secure we are in our relationship. This is this is all an illusion. Today we're talking. I don't actually care about how Joel is.
Oh man.
This is all just a setup to lead into a topic.
Very long setup.
Yeah. And now whoever was skipping through the intro, you can stop skipping. Now you can
start.
We're actually getting into it now. That's okay. You don't care about us. No worries. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about the concept of attachment and how it relates to our journey through finding freedom and healing and addiction.
Yeah.
So Joel,
Yes.
what is attachment?
See, I knew you were going to ask me that. And we talked about this beforehand, because I think attachment is kind of people just talk about attachment and they're It's kind of self-explanatory, I think, a little bit, because it's about how we form relationships and how we connect inside of those relationships. And man, in doing the research for this episode, you just see how integrated the idea and the concept of attachment is woven not just into recovery, but throughout the human experience of how we experience relationship with God and others.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a foundation of this topic and this conversation, but that attachment to God and others, relationship with God and others has been broken because of sin in the Genesis story, but also because of just the complexities of what make up human experience and human life. And so attachment to me is the process and the way that you have developed relationship and connection with others.
Yeah.
And that can be, I think, classically defined as either anxious attachment or avoidant attachment. We'll kind of break down the complexities as we
And
move.
secure.
Insecure, which is healthy connection.
Yeah.
But I don't know anyone
Yeah.
who's in that space.
It's just Jesus.
Just Jesus.
That's about it.
And so just really how that interplays with the meta narrative of human history and
Good phrase.
how that really has pretty dramatic implications for the recovery journey.
Most definitely.
And so we'll unpack a lot of how attachment plays a role in the recovery process. And then ultimately we'll get to the end, which is my favorite. Not because the podcast is over, but because we get to talk about how to heal attachment rupture and break. And I think that's why we're here at 423, is to help people restore healthy attachment or connection to God and others through that intimate space. So Ben, I'd love to hear from you. I think on our team, you're probably the Bible nerd.
Oh, thank you.
Can I give you that?
That's an honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the Bible Project a lot.
Yeah.
You can just say that.
You're a Bible nerd.
Yeah.
And I think you have always loved the narrative that we see in Genesis, which is where, a little prelude, but this is where we see the first break of attachment.
I must definitely.
So just walk us through, man. What do you see in that original relationship that between God and man?
No, totally. First of all, I love that you describe attachment as a process. I think that's a really integral thing to include in like your working definition. Basically, attachment is just this foundational understanding of how relationships work and our ability to connect and bond with one another as relational creatures.
Sure.
I really like that definition. But as for the Genesis narrative, before the first break in attachment or the first rupture, you could say, everything was really, really good with the potential to be perfect. Right? God named everything as good over the first 6 days, and then he made humanity and said it was very good. And he made us in his image. And so a beautiful thing about that is God in himself is a triune God. He is one being with 3 distinct members. And in the same way, we too are relational creatures, that we are less of a me and more of a we, as Christian counselor Adam Young loves to say. Shout out him. You should go check him out if you like this podcast. So all that to say, God creates us in his image for direct connection in his presence, for loving connection, for building joy or delighting to be with one another.
Yeah.
That's God's entire purpose. Read Ephesians 1:9. His entire purpose is to unite all things in heaven and things on earth. And that's how it started, right? We had direct presence with God in the garden, and the potential for everything to be perfect if the humans choose correctly. Choose which voice to listen to. Yeah. And so we see eventually in Genesis 3 that there's this serpent creature that comes to the humans, and specifically Eve, the woman, and strikes up a conversation and begins to sow seeds of doubt, of distrust between God and humans. And ultimately, Eve decides that she wants to have the ability to decide what is good and what is bad on her own and try to become like God, to usurp his place of power. And so she takes the fruit and gives it to her companion Adam, and they take and they eat. And in that moment, their eyes are opened and they realize they're naked and they are afraid. And so they flee from one another. So, right, there's that horizontal break between humans and attachment or relationship. There's a rupture. And so they go and they hide within the bushes, within the trees, and they cover themselves. They're no longer naked and unashamed, but they're now ashamed of their form and being seen fully. And then God comes back into the picture. Not that he ever left, but he makes his presence known, and they can hear him walking through the garden. And he cries out to them, "Where are you?" Which is one of the saddest questions in all of Scripture, but also one of the most redemptive questions in all of Scripture as well. Because God knew exactly where they were, and they had chosen to hide themselves from him out of fear and shame of their decision. But he still is beckoning them out to try to restore relationship. He doesn't immediately punish or destroy or cut them off, but instead he beckons them out as a gentle father would with a disobedient child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and kind of doing some research on this topic, getting into this, and that first use of the word fear, like I heard you in the garden, and so I hid because I was afraid. And it's the first instance of fear. And in other places in Scripture, we're called to fear the Lord, but that's out of reverence and awe and wonder. But this is the first recorded instance of relational rejection of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And relational disconnection from God. And so it wasn't just, oh, I heard you, and so I hid behind the fig leaves, behind the bush to avoid your physical presence, but that there was a rupture in my ability to trust your goodness and the relationship that we have. And man, how heartbreaking is that? To go from almost perfect connection in the garden to hiding because of relational fracture and disconnection. I think that's just the beginning of what we see in the human experience of that break of fearing vulnerability, of fearing connection in those most intimate spaces.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about Genesis 1-3. It's not just a one-off event or story talking about the beginning of everything, but it really is a lesson to be learned about every single human and our experience in this broken world where sin exists.
Yeah.
And so now we see the compounding effects of sin throughout history, and right now, for each individual, we've had that experience of trust being betrayed, of doing wrong, of sinning and being sinned against, and shame entering the picture and cutting off relational access or security between people. And so I think we've kind of fallen into the lie, especially in our culture, that is so independent, that is so me-focused, that we don't need each other, that we're actually independent beings, especially as men. We want to be fully self-reliant. But in reality, we are deeply created for relationship with one another, and making sure that relationship is done in a healthy and Christ-like way as well is just as important. Because relationship and absence of relationship can do just as much damage if that relationship is abusive, hurtful, and a host of other negative things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's, when we're working with men, women, just everyone in our program, helping them understand that we were all created. Like a part of our created being is to connect in those most intimate ways. Literally, it is a part of the created function of the human experience, which is to connect in vulnerable, intimate relationship where I think there's those classic 4 S's: seen, safe, soothe, and secure. That's all meant to be fully 100% connected inside of relationship with God and others. And even in that Genesis 3 narrative, you see Adam confronted, there's the fear, disconnection, rupture from God. And then immediately he throws Eve under the bus. So it's that the vertical break. And then he's like, whew, and he's like cutting off and severing relationship with Eve. And he's beginning to take that fear and that break of relationship and have that cascade over every area of life. And so us, generations and millennia later are still replicating this force of rupture and break inside of relationship with God and others,
Mm.
where my core created being longs to be seen, to be safe, to be soothed, nurtured, safe, secure, chased after, desired, all in beautiful, healthy, God-given ways. And yet my broken image of God within me, like
Yeah.
the sinful effect in my body and the way that my parents raised me and the way that
Mm.
community and society has interacted with myself, I have a distrust
Mm.
and a rejection of vulnerability and a severance of the vertical connection between me and God, and a distrust and a severance of my connection between others.
Right.
That's why it was important that you asked me how I was.
Yeah.
You're making me feel seen, safe, soothed,
Exactly.
secure.
Come on.
Right, come on.
Come on.
Right, we're building those healthy relationships. And so as we approach the conversations inside of recovery, having a foundational understanding that we were created for those pieces of connection, and that through the process of just the human experience because of sin, those have been broken, and then how that interplays with the very grassroots, on the ground relationships that I have with you and with my wife and with my kids and with others inside of community, has pretty astounding impacts and consequences to the recovery journey for an individual.
Yeah. No, that's so well said. And I think something that would be great context for listeners to hear is how your attachment is formed. Whether you are securely attached and you have this assumption of trust within relationship, and that when there's conflict, there's this deep belief that you are able to repair and reconcile, versus insecure attachment where there maybe isn't that assumption,
Yeah.
or you don't feel like you can trust people, or you'd rather do it on your own. Right. We aren't, there isn't just a switch that gets flipped at some point in life. It's actually been formed in us really since we've been born, or even at times before
Yeah.
coming out of the womb.
We're not going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but all that to say,
Yeah.
right, attachment is most impacted or deeply formed within the structures of our brain within the first 6 months to 18 months of life.
Yeah. I'm curious. This is on the fly for you.
Sure.
So here you go. And I can start so that you know where we're going.
Go for it.
Ben, what was the first moment that you remember experiencing attachment break in your story? I can go first.
It's a great
If
question.
you have time to think. I think it's helpful for those of you listening to just hear from us or hear from a person. Like, we're talking about all these big abstract theological concepts and psychology frameworks, and they can go over your head. But here's one from me. I don't necessarily recall the age. I was probably 6 or 7, and my family was going through a divorce, and that's horrific enough to a family system. But I specifically remember a moment where I, in my young brain, looked around and I saw all the chaotic emotional energy from within my family system. I was like, wow. Like, it was almost like looking up of like, wow, everyone else has really big emotions right now, and no one is looking at me. And I don't know what I'm feeling because I'm 6. I don't know the landscape of human emotion. I'm, at that age, like, all you know is like, I'm hungry. Like, you just don't have a depth of emotional
Not
awareness.
hardware.
You don't have hardware. And I distinctly remember this moment of feeling overlooked, of not being, and then the emotional equivalence of that was that I was not worth the time and attention it would have taken to pay attention to me.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, my secure attachment to my caregivers, my secure attachment to my individual identity as a person that has value and worth in the world, was broken. It was ruptured.
Yeah.
And that is not to the fault of my parents. It's not to the fault of my brother. That's not to the fault of my community. It's that we live in a broken world with broken people.
Yeah.
And that perfect, good relational connection that we are meant to experience with God in the garden cannot be had here in this world. Right?
Yeah.
That's going to be in the new creation, praise the Lord, where we have perfect, finally perfect connection with God and others in this space. And so for me, that broken rupture of attachment to where I realized that I was not going to be seen or soothed, and that ultimately I was not safe or secure
Yeah.
in my identity,
Right.
that just began to build my sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
And from that space, I began to pursue things to help fill the empty void within. I'll stop there because that takes
Sure.
us in a different direction.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear
Yeah.
maybe your experience of when you first experienced
Right.
an attachment break in your story.
No, I will. And I love that example that you give, and especially the way you demonstrate it of like not saying it's my parents' fault or just blame shifting,
Yeah.
but instead being committed to the reality of the situation. Saying, this is what happened. This is the way my 6-year-old self interpreted this, and this is why I learned from it, how it affected my character and who I am. This will be a bit of a raw example for me, which makes me think maybe this is the Holy Spirit bringing it
Yeah.
to mind on literally the car ride over, as thinking about attachment, thinking about this conversation and times that there were rupture. This was maybe when I was 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
And so it's very murky memory, but I remember the experience of maybe getting in trouble or having some disappointing experience and like sobbing pretty uncontrollably. Like, when you get to that point where you're like, when you're crying,
Stop.
you literally can't stop.
Yeah.
And like my parents, I can't remember if it was my mom or my dad or both of them, we were like in the living room. And shout out you guys if you're listening. Love y'all. Maybe you remember this and you can tell me about it. Probably not though. But like being in the living room, sobbing, and then like being threatened to get into more trouble if I didn't stop crying.
Yeah.
And having this internal
I have never said that as a parent.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So like
I'm sure I have.
such a dilemma in that moment of like feeling like I cannot stop crying and not being seen in the midst of that distress.
Yeah.
And what was brought was the threat of more punishment
Mm.
for having those big, difficult emotions that as a 4 or 5-year-old, it's really hard to self-regulate yourself back down to
Yeah.
a state of calm and being cool and collected, especially when you're already in trouble. So yeah, that's a raw one. I'll have to think about that one and pray about that one more. But yeah, that came to mind this morning even. Mhm.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for opening that up to the
Yeah.
space.
Of course.
Yeah, and I think, we could probably list off 100
Mm.
that we've experienced in life, because these ruptures of attachment, and they happen all the time,
Mhm.
right? Like the growing up through adolescence and marriage and
Mhm.
relationships and community, there's break of connection every day.
Yeah.
Right. And there's formation of healthy connection, and then there's the break, and there's the rupture and the break.
Mhm.
But with the formation of a broken attachment in childhood, in those developmental years, plays a foundational role in the recovery process. And so for people inside of recovery, understanding how the brain and the body's response to broken attachment in youth and in childhood has that complex interplay with how they go forward and move forward in life as, maturing adults and maturing young people. So we'll unpack that here, of really what that does to the human experience.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the tricky thing with how we are designed, is that in the first 6 months to 18 months where we have no ability to have explicit conscious memories, and we assume that, oh, it didn't really matter what it was like in those years because I can't remember anything. So, like, what's the big deal? But in reality, that actually makes up the most of who we are, how we respond in relationships, and actually dictates the structures that are formed in your brain that allow you to regulate those big, difficult emotions, or that cause you to run towards achievement if you're maybe anxious attachment, or to avoidance if you're avoidantly attached. Uh, but yeah, like it has such a big impact from those early years. And that's why it's so important in, the theme of this season of finding your why, to make that implicit knowledge explicit
Yeah.
and to do it within a new type of relationship. But we'll get to that. We're going to get to that later.
You're getting ahead of
Yeah.
Man, I think as much as you're the Bible nerd, I think I'm the biology nerd.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
I love the neurobiology and just studying this stuff, and came across just a lot of great research through some trainings that I've been through recently. And was just really impacted on one of the core elements that we teach in the 423 is the window of tolerance. And so it's a healthy understanding of how the way that our body reacts at a nervous system level, at an automatic level within our bodies, has a pretty dramatic interplay with how we navigate the complexities of the compulsive addiction in our bodies, and how our brains and our bodies are literally rewired by pornography to go pursue and chase after comfort. But through some of this study that I was doing in this research of just how those initial ruptures to the nervous system, right? So you have your vagus nerve that goes through your body, and there's polyvagal theory, which describes the interactions the body has with your nervous system. At a very base level, this is fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And I think most people are familiar with that context of information. But understanding that the sympathetic response in the nervous system, this is the hyperarousal. So this is the heightened state of fight or flight, where your body is designed to run away from discomfort. And this is physical threat, like, ooh, a bear popped out. What do I do? Well, don't run, actually, because you need to freeze.
Get big.
Get big, or there's a difference there. But your brain's response is to heighten to the place where you want to either run away or fight. Right? And we see this play out in relationships, right? I have a broken connection with you, or you offend me, and I get big and my body gets hot and, adrenaline starts to course and I'm ready to fight. I think road rage is a perfect experience of that, which I've actually never had road rage.
Really?
But you see people where it's like
Perfect.
someone cuts them off and all of a sudden they're ready to destroy the entire universe. And their eyes are popping out of their head, and their veins are popping out, and they're sweaty and angry. That is the vagal nerve's response into the fight or flight, into the fight mode, where there's this hyper-aggression. And so what we see is that when a child experiences that first attachment rupture, the body's response is, oh, there was a break, there was a discomfort, there was a fear and an anxiety that comes with break in relationship. And so how do we, as a body, as a 4-year-old body, probably even earlier when you first experienced your first attachment rupture,
Definitely.
how does a 1-year-old's body, system respond to rupture and repair? And so it activates inside of the nervous system this accelerated fight-flight, where they become hyper-aware or hyper-vigilant, or overprotective, where there's a lack of emotional safety, where those overwhelming emotions stimulate that space. But all of that happens in the right brain of the body. This is where the limbic system is. This is where a child's determined neuronal pathways exist for how they're going to cope with future events. Right? So whenever you experience a rupture in relationship, a rupture of relational safety, your body's natural response is going to push you into one of those two categories. Either fight or flight, which is anxious attachment. This is where you're going to get big, either to run away or to fight back, right? This is going to produce a hyperactivity in your brain, a hyperactivity in your body, to help navigate the complexities of the trauma. The other side of that coin is the hypoarousal. This is the dorsal vagal. This is the shutdown response to that. When you experience relational discomfort, you become avoidantly attached to that relationship, where you're going to shut down. You're going to experience depression. You're going to experience a withdrawal. And I've experienced both of those states in my life through relationships. I specifically remember one in, it was an argument with my wife when we were younger, because we're so much more mature now. We never fight.
Right.
Never. And I was in my addiction at that time as well. And she confronted me about something. And it just felt like this relational break. And it reminded me of not being seen as a kid. It reminded me of not being safe as a kid. And so my body's natural response was to shut down and to avoid the conflict and to withdraw. And it was almost as if I couldn't think or speak or process emotion. I literally just sat there numb while she's saying, like, why can't you just say something? Why can't you just talk? Literally, this was my nervous system's response to attachment rupture.
Yep.
And the body plays such a powerful role in how we respond
Mm.
to those broken places inside of our day-to-day life.
Yeah. That was so well explained and a great example to go along with it and to build out maybe a little bit more practical understanding as well. Because, right, we're throwing around a lot of big, specific technical terms there that like they sound more intimidating than they are. So I encourage you go look up window of tolerance, hyperarousal after this podcast, or look into the 423 resources if you're in one of our communities because we have more explanations there.
Yeah.
All that to say though, in terms of attachment, let's take that example from when I was 4 again.
Yeah.
In that moment where I didn't have the hardware or the capacity within my brain and within my nervous system to regulate or tolerate those big emotions of sadness and distress and likely some frustration and fear, right? Because I remember there's some connotation of punishment in that moment. I didn't have the ability to comprehend what was happening. And so my physiological response was to cry, to break down, to seek some sort of connection with my caregiver, with my mom or with my dad in that moment. And the reason why it was broken attachment isn't because I felt that emotional response initially and was crying. That's not the break. The break is whenever the caregiver doesn't look to the child and re-regulate or connect with them, attune to that emotional state, and then walk with them or co-regulate through a more stable emotional state. And so that taught me in that moment that I need to compartmentalize those big emotions. I need to stuff them down and shove them down and shut down whenever I feel big emotions because it's not safe to express them.
Yeah.
I wasn't taught a way to work through those. So I was just taught to get rid of them or ignore them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the powerful thing for the human experience is that through God's beautiful design of our bodies and our brains is that your brain then every experience then relearns the new way to go. Like, so you experience that at 4.
Right.
Your brain says, what do we do? Well, let's go this way this time. And you choose this pathway. And then it happens at 4.5 and you go this way and this way and this way and this way and this way.
Right.
And your brain, because of relational rupture and trauma, builds neural pathways as a response mechanism. So Ben, how old are you?
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm 24. So it's 20 years later.
So for the last 20 years, you have had a relational rupture that's still raw. Like I could see you experiencing the emotions of it.
Yeah.
Your brain is still remembering the emotional trauma from 4 years old. You're still carrying that attachment wound and that attachment rupture from those first moments. And that has probably been reinforced.
Most definitely. That's the thing about the brain is that it learns a pattern and then like assumes that's what's going to happen again.
Starts looking for it.
Right. And it puts this lens over the way we interpret life.
It's called neuroception.
Neuroception.
Yeah. It's the brain. The brain literally begins to perceive real or perceived danger.
Yeah.
And so you could actually step into a healthy relationship with someone, but because of the relational ruptures that you have experienced and you've built this pathway towards, let's say, an avoidant attachment to that type of engagement, you're going to start perceiving every interaction from the lens of you're going to be wounded. And so you're going to naturally begin to move into an avoidant attachment because of those woundings that have existed.
Right. Telling me relationship isn't safe. Therefore, I must like depend upon myself or find something else outside of a relationship to re-regulate, to bring homeostasis or balance.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what rounds us out to how we've ended up here, with depending upon pornography addiction or really anything, right? I think whenever we're younger, maybe we use sweets and, maybe some acting out to try to get our parents' attention. And then over time, that stops providing. And then we run across a pornography magazine or we're curious and we look something up on Google. And then all of a sudden, we find this deep rush and arousal and ability to run away from all of our problems.
Do you want to know what one of my first dysregulation coping mechanisms was? Sugar bread.
Sugar bread.
Literally, I would take a piece of white bread and I would just dump white sugar on it,
Mm.
as thick as could pile, and then I would eat it.
Yeah.
And I remember, now I'm correlating that to whenever I would feel stress or dysregulation. I mean, sugar gives so much dopamine, endorphin,
Yep.
natural source of like a high, an upper,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I would go pursue that category. And I think that is exactly what we're talking about today for recovery implications of attachment, is that you have experienced broken connection. You have
Yeah.
experienced broken connection in
Looking at the camera.
relationship. I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking at
You
you into
listen,
your
right?
soul. Is that there are relational wounds and there are relational ruptures that exist because of the broken human experience, that your nervous system has chosen a pathway over time to pursue. And the other beautiful part of God's design is that he created us to then seek comfort to fulfill and satisfy the wound,
Hmm.
right? So we
Yep.
have this pathway that's, hey, I'm wounded, hey, I'm wounded. And you continue to just build this recursive path through your brain's experience. Your brain is also going to seek a soothing mechanism to fulfill the same measure of which you are being wounded, right? And this is where pornography perfectly fits almost into the form and function of what healthy attachment is supposed to do, because in pornography and the consumption of pornography, you're getting your sugar bread, you're getting that dopamine dump, that reward system hijacking at an extreme level. But what you're also getting is the false form of intimacy. You're getting that false form of connection. Your brain is viewing a relational act of supposed intimacy that fills those voids of, I long to be seen, saved, healthy touch, soothed, secure in relationships. And so pornography fulfills the relational wound almost as much as it fulfills just the desire for dopamigenic relief in the nervous system,
Yeah.
or the body's desire for pleasure.
Right.
Better
Right.
way to
Right.
say
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it is this, I'd almost say architect, there's an enemy out there, right?
True.
Of
Yeah.
taking God's beautiful design for healthy physical and sexual intimacy and reshaping it into a perfectly false form of connection and intimacy, to capture both the anxious avoidant,
Yep.
or the anxious attached, and the avoidant attached. Where maybe in your anxious attachment, you are pursuing an overreach for intimacy, where you're trying to navigate all the complexities of emotional response, and you're trying to pursue, does this person love me? Does this person want me? And you have a hyper anxiety surrounding attachment. Well, pornography gives you a perfectly solid state form of attachment
On demand.
in your genre, in your vein, and in today's AI tech, perfectly suited to fulfill what you're looking for, so that you don't have to enter into relationship with distrust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is so crazy. I like how you highlighted that as well, as right, because our sexuality is one of the most powerful, complex, and beautiful parts of ourselves. Naturally, the enemy, the spiritual evil in this world, the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call him, is going to target that. It's going to target us, and especially within the church, to try to make us have this false, twisted, or silent version of what was once really good and beautiful. Yeah. And I also like, whenever we think about attachment, if you're really utilitarian, it would be easy to say, well, if pornography is like checking the box, if it is providing the relief or the regulation that I'm looking for, like, is it really all that bad? Can't I just like keep it around and, go to it every once in a while? But we aren't like cars that just need gas when we're low and low in the gas tank. The gas light comes on. It's like, oh, time to fill up. I'm like, now go watch pornography.
Let me get my false form of intimacy connection.
Exactly. It's counterfeit. It's not actually going to fuel you by any means, because it's lacking joy. It doesn't delight to be with you. The actors' faces don't light up when they're with you, because they just can't. It's through a screen, and there's no deep, true love in pornography either. It's a complete distortion of what was supposed to be one of the most intimate and bonding acts, is now empty and shallow and damaging.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's interesting because it almost echoes the lie that the serpent gave to Eve
Mm,
in the garden
yeah.
of like, hey, you have this, and this is
Right.
the healthy form, but you could do this, and this is actually a greater experience. And
Mhm.
it just twists and distorts the truth to cultivate distrust and healthy connection and vulnerability with God in that scenario. But for us, the lie of pornography comes in and says, hey, this is a place where you can connect and you can get your sugar bread, your pleasure. It's going to be a new metric for that, sugar bread. You get the pleasure, you get the relief. There's no risk in this relationship. There's no deficit in this. All you get is pleasure and
Mhm.
connection.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it leads to death.
Yep.
And so, that's why we exist. Like, this is why
Yeah.
423 communities exist, is to help restore healthy connection, healthy attachment between self and God, the vertical relationship, and the horizontal relationship between you and I.
Mhm.
Because the beautiful thing about attachment, this goes back to neurobiology, and we'll unpack this later. A lot of this is Kurt Thompson's work. Shout out Kurt Thompson. Love you, brother.
Yes, sir.
And it goes back to this, that when you and I see each other,
Mhm.
and when you and I connect, and my loving, attuned, head tilted presence, sees you sharing,
Mhm.
and you unpack with me what you experienced at 4 years old, and how you were not seen and safe and soothed in that moment, and that no one wanted to pursue you. When you're opening up that memory in your limbic brain,
Mhm.
and you're saying, hey, memory, it's safe for you to come out and be seen and known.
Yep.
When you see that I'm seeing you with love and attunement and connection and attachment, it actually begins to heal those places of your brain, little bits by little bits. And you're basically telling your brain, we no longer need to go down this path for safety and protection, because there is a place for healthy, secure connection between brothers in this scenario, but then also between God. And as I rebuild my connection with you and with the hundreds of other brothers that I've gotten to connect with over the last decade,
Yeah.
it actually restores my ability to have renewed faith, hope, and trust in the relationship to God.
Mhm.
And so by human connection and recovery, we are reforming the bridge for humanity to have relationship with God.
Yep.
And then one of his primary calls to the human is to say, do this together.
Mm.
Do life together in
Right.
community, because this is where you are going to find health. This is how
Yep.
you're going to restore Eden.
So true. It reminds me of Jesus' command to his disciples, and the upper room where he says, I give you a new commandment, love one another as I have loved you. In that same way, I think that's why community is so essential. We are a big proponent of counseling, of therapy. It's such an important role, especially within the recovery journey. However, if you never witness someone else opening their life up to be vulnerable, to bring up these deeply wounding things, and to see other brothers or the community come around them and not seek to just fix them or offer advice or preach at them, but to instead just be with them and be a loving presence. If you don't have a model, it's going to be much harder to actually begin to do that yourself. So that's one of the most beautiful things about showing up to a community where it's like, this sounds intimidating. I have no idea how to do this. Great. That's why it's a community. You get to see 6, 7, 8 other guys do this and learn through experience, not just listening to us talk or reading about it in a book. It's through relationship where you have the most damaging wounds, but it's also through relationship where you have the most healing as well.
Yeah. And in that same call for us, we are to then go and love one another, right?
Mhm.
And we get to embody that same love of Christ, and he has given us his spirit within us, which is then also repair. We're going to go, that's a little bit deeper into theology, but like
Yeah.
that Christ came to restore what was broken. And he restored the connection and ability for us to have healthy connection to God and others through his spirit. And so when you're in a community of spirit-filled, embodied presence of Jesus, brothers who are seeing and repairing wounds that happened at 4 years old, you're helping the brain to restore from the patterns that have pushed it towards the addictive process. And so through healing these relational ruptures, through healing these relational breaks, of attachment. We can move away from needing to chase the sugar bread,
Yeah.
right? Of needing to chase the pornography to soothe the break of relationship, because in community, you are safe, you are seen, you are loved and known more than you could possibly fathom. And it allows us to exist in this world without having to choose pornography as our source of comfort.
Yeah. So well said.
Mhm.
I think with that, I hope that's an encouragement to the listener out there that you would be brave, that you'd be courageous to just show up and to join a community, and we'll be with you every step of the way. So instead of picking up another book or listening to another podcast, which, you can listen to us, you can listen to another podcast of ours. But no, I highly recommend that you actually put this to practice and step into a community, because that's where you'll see the change you're longing for.
Absolutely. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Thanks for listening. If you want to learn more about 423 Communities or get connected with us, go to 423communities.org and follow us at the links in the show notes or the description below.